My name's Cassandra Maddox. I spent 25 years in U.S. Cyber Command. I made it to Lieutenant Colonel. I've intercepted terrorist chatter, neutralized black market data rings, and briefed senators who thought encryption was a font setting. But nothing in those decades behind firewalls and digital battlegrounds prepared me for what I felt standing on that sidewalk outside the house my grandfather built, with my discharge papers still warm in my bag. The front porch light was on, but it didn't feel like welcome. It felt like warning. It was late September. The air had that sharp pre-winter bite. And the silence? It was personal. I hadn't even reached the gate when the intercom buzzed to life. My sister's voice, hard and flat, cut through. "I'm calling the police." I blinked, confused. "Is this a joke?" "You can't just show up here, Cass," she snapped. "This isn't your home anymore. You left. You disappeared." I told her I'd just come back from service. I said I wanted to see Mom. "She doesn't want to see you," Erin said. "Neither does Dad. And in case it isn't clear, you're not in the will. You're not even on the deed." 10 minutes later, the cruiser pulled up. 2 officers stepped out, one young, one with a buzz cut I recognized from the mirror most of my life. He paused when he saw me, clocked the uniform. "Lieutenant Colonel Maddox?" I nodded. Didn't matter. "This property belongs to Richard and Erin Maddox," the younger one said. "You're not listed on any access records." The gate clicked shut behind them. And that's when I realized I wasn't fighting foreign adversaries anymore. I was at war with my own blood. I didn't leave. I couldn't. I drove 2 blocks down, parked, and just sat. The porch light flickered like it was shorting out on purpose. The hydrangeas Grandma planted were gone, replaced by patchy sod and a crooked sign that read, "Private listing, for sale." I hadn't cried in Bahrain, not during briefings about captured agents, not even when I signed my discharge alone. But that night something fractured. That house held every piece of who I used to be. The glow-in-the-dark stars still stuck to the ceiling in my old bedroom. The spot under the stairs where Grandpa taught me Morse code. It was all still there, and now they were scrubbing me out like a stain. At sunrise, I saw Dad through the front window, still sharp, still upright like a CEO in a boardroom dream. He never looked toward the street. I checked my phone. Nothing from Mom, just one text. "Blocked number, no name. Return to base, there's nothing here for you." I let it drop into the cup holder. Then I pulled myself up. I wasn't built for surrender. By 9 a.m., I was walking into a little cafe on Jefferson Street. Back booth, black coffee smell. And there she was, Riley Thorne. We'd shared a dorm during undergrad before my first deployment. She looked like time hadn't touched her. Black blazer, tablet already on. She slid it across the table before saying a word. "You'll want to see this." There it was. Address, 2301 Renfield Lane. My grandfather's house, listed under something called Brighthaven Ridge Holdings, LLC. "I didn't sell that house," I said. Riley nodded slowly. "That's what I thought." She tapped again. The screen switched to a county filing, a transfer of ownership, 3 months ago. My name was right there on the seller's line. That wasn't my signature. Riley didn't blink. "It's not yours," she said, "but someone made it look like it is." That was the moment my new war began. Not overseas, not behind a desk, but right here. In the backyard I used to play freeze tag in. Riley was already a dozen tabs deep. Notary stamps, transfer dates. She moved like she'd done this before, and I felt like a child again, outnumbered in my own family. "This notary," she said, pointing to a digital stamp, "suspended for falsifying DMV documents last year. That same signature's on your deed transfer." I stared. They didn't just take the house, they plotted it. "They did more than plot," Riley said. "They ran a clean op, fast, hidden in plain sight." I told her Erin said I'd been cut from the will, that I had no stake. "Your grandfather left it to you, didn't he?" "Yeah," I said. "Told me straight up, day before he passed. But I never saw the documents." Riley reached into her case and pulled a county record. "A revised will, filed 1 month after his death. Leaves everything to your dad and Erin." My stomach dropped. "They forged it." "Or coerced it," she said. "Either way, it's inconsistent. We just need the original." "I've got backups, scans, maybe even Grandpa's video journal." That made her smile. If we find even one conflict, timestamps, witness names, we can open a civil claim. I leaned back. Everything Aaron said, the lies, the dismissal, it wasn't just family betrayal. It was criminal. Brighthaven is a shell, Riley added, connected to Corway Logistics. My chest tightened. Corway, that's Ryan's company. Your sister's husband? International freight, always on the move, always vague. She opened her legal pad. I'll file an injunction, freeze the title, pull notary records, trace Brighthaven's ownership. She was calm, methodical, but inside me, I was on fire. They think I won't fight. They don't know you, she said. That night, I drove past the house again. It looked polished, sanitized, but not clean. They thought they'd erased me. They forgot I have a pen, too, and I know how to write my name back in. The next morning, Riley called me early. Her voice was calm, clipped, but there was something under it, a thread of tension. I pulled the utility records for the house, she said. Power usage is off the charts. Spikes like that don't come from a microwave. What kind of spikes? Industrial refrigeration, sustained loads. For what, though? There are no permits filed, no licensed upgrades, no basement work reported. Silence stretched across the line. I've seen that pattern before, I said finally. Government black sites, private data vaults, and one time a synthetic lab outside Doha. We're not in Doha, Riley said. This is Renfield Lane. But the feeling in my chest was the same. Vague, shadow powerful, hiding right in front of your face. I need to see it myself. I figured you'd say that. Be careful, Cass. That evening I parked again, same 2 blocks down. My windows were cracked just enough for the fall breeze to slip in. I didn't have a plan, just instincts honed by a career in paranoia. At 10:45 p.m., a man appeared, mid-40s, baseball cap, hoodie zipped high. He didn't make eye contact, just leaned on a lamppost across the street like he was waiting on a bus that never came. Then he left. When I walked to my car, there was something tucked under my wiper blade, a folded piece of paper, block print, all caps. If you're really Cassandra, meet me at Alley 9, 11 p.m., come alone. No signature, no warning. But I didn't hesitate. The alley behind Renfield Lane was the kind you forget exists. Faded chain-link fences, overflowing recycling bins, a cracked security lamp struggling to stay alive. He was already there, older than I expected. Grease-stained jeans, knuckles rough from years under hoods, and on his forearm, a faded Marine Corps tattoo. I knew your grandfather, he said before I could speak. Name's Marcus. Fix cars down on McRae. I've lived in this neighborhood long enough to know when things start feeling wrong. What did you see? I asked. My voice was low, controlled, but I was already scanning the shadows. They say you've got issues, he said, that you're unstable, that combat messed you up. Your sister? She tells the neighbors you're paranoid. I didn't blink. Let them talk. Marcus looked around before leaning in. But I've seen what goes down here. Black vans, no plates. They show up after midnight, back into the alley, unload crates, no noise, no light. Always the same tall guy in gloves, watching. My blood turned to ice. Ryan, I asked. He nodded. He's there every time. You ever see what's inside the crates? No, they go straight into the basement. That's where the power surge is, right? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. They're not moving furniture, he added. This ain't a moving company job. I slipped my hand into my coat pocket and clicked on a small voice recorder. I need proof. That's not smart, Marcus warned. These people, they don't care about laws, and they know how to make problems disappear. I don't care what they care about, I said. I care about the truth. That night, I dressed in black, tactical, no medals, no zippers, nothing reflective. I clipped a micro camera to my collar and slipped through the shadows like I had 100 times overseas. At 12:30 a.m., 2 black trucks pulled in, lights off. 4 men got out. Ryan was one of them. He moved like he owned the damn place. No hesitation. One gesture, and the others followed his lead, straight toward the back entrance of my grandfather's house. I filmed everything. Faces, movements, license plates, or lack thereof, timestamps. Then I moved closer, silent, low. They disappeared inside. I found a rusted air vent just beneath a broken window. Old design. Still had good acoustics. I slid my recorder inside and waited. It didn't take long. First came the murmur, then a voice. If the officer finds out, no warning, sever the tie. I stopped breathing. That voice wasn't Ryan's. It was gravel-lined, southern cadence, familiar. My father, not just complicit. He was running the damn operation. I backed away slow, heart pounding like a drum under my ribs. I didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't panic. I did what I was trained to do. Document, catalog, disappear. Because now the war had a voice, and it was his. I returned at sunrise. The alley was quiet, still. The vent was clean. Too clean. The recorder was gone. No debris, no footprints, no trace I'd ever been there. And that meant one thing. They knew. Not just that someone was watching. They knew it was me. An hour later, I got the message. No name, no number. You're playing with fire. I have your military psych file. Want to see what it says about you? My hand tightened around the phone. Whoever sent that had clearance or access to someone who did. I didn't delete the message. I forwarded it to two people. First, to Riley. Second, to Isaac Neng, cyber intelligence. Ramstein. We hadn't spoken in 2 years, but he answered in 6 minutes. Pull everything. Start the chain. Don't wait. That night, my apartment turned into a war room. I powered up both laptops, dusted off my backup server, and unlocked 3 encrypted drives. I wasn't cataloging my past anymore. I was prepping for a battle. Every email I'd archived, every property doc I'd scanned, every old voicemail Grandpa ever left me, all of it was evidence now. Then the ping, a private Zoom request, ID masked, voice modulated. Riley had connected me with Kayla, a digital forensics specialist who could crack buried metadata like it was bubble wrap. I got your data packet, she said. Nice encryption. Let's see what these liars missed. She dove into IP logs, chain of custody documents, signing authorities, you name it. Then Isaac jumped in with financial trails, wire transfers, midnight timestamps. Within hours, they had a map. Brighthaven Holdings, Shell Company. Connected to Coreway Logistics, Ryan's firm. Connected to Delilah Maddox's personal accounts. And then Isaac's voice cut through like a knife. Wait, this signature on the warehouse lease? It's your father's. I froze. He authorized commercial storage under Brighthaven. He hadn't just looked the other way. He signed off on the entire thing. Riley's voice was razor sharp. We're filing now. Forgery, fraud, federal contract abuse. This just went from civil to criminal. I stared at the screen. There, in digital ink, was the name I'd trusted my whole life. My father's. 2 days after we traced the signature back to my father, Riley met me at the county clerk's office. No more back corners or encrypted Zoom calls. We were in broad daylight now. I wore my uniform. Not to show off, but because people needed to remember who they were messing with. Riley wore her black blazer like body armor. She carried the paperwork in a manila envelope thick enough to stun a mule. We walked straight through the glass doors and handed over the injunction. Effective immediately, all transfers of ownership for 2301 Renfield Lane were frozen. All financial activity tied to the property flagged for investigation. That afternoon, we pulled into the driveway of the house my grandfather left me, and the house my own family tried to steal with forged signatures and offshore laundering. There was a silver Lexus in the drive, and Ryan's black F-Zero parked at an angle like he didn't think rules applied to him. I rang the doorbell. Delilah answered. Fresh makeup, hair curled, blouse ironed, theatrical. Her smile vanished when she saw me. Then she spotted Riley and the envelope. Color drained from her face. We're here to serve you, Riley said, calm as a lake in winter. Court injunction. All property transfers, leases, and related financial transactions are under federal freeze. The county land office has been notified. Delilah's hand shook as she took the envelope. You can't do this, she hissed. That's when Ryan stepped into view. Button-down shirt, no tie, fake calm. You really want to go down this road, Cass? He asked. I looked him dead in the eyes. I walked roads a lot darker than this. I know how to navigate shadows. He leaned forward slightly. You don't know who you're fighting. I didn't flinch. I do. A logistics fraudster, a man laundering contracts through my name, and a coward. His jaw twitched. You're unstable. We have proof. You're not fit to testify. I've been evaluated. You'll see the results entered into evidence. Then Riley stepped in. And if either of you tries intimidation again, we'll file for witness harassment under Title 18. You want to dance with federal charges? Keep going. Delilah looked like she was trying to hold her breath and cry at the same time. This is our house, she said. No, I said. It was mine before you rewrote history. We turned and walked away. Behind us, the door slammed. In the car, Riley exhaled slowly. They'll strike back. They already did, I said. Now it's our turn. That night, I dug deeper. What started as a stolen house was morphing into something much larger. The fake deed was the tip of the iceberg. Behind it was an entire network. Brighthaven wasn't just a front. It was a funnel. Riley's legal team and Isaac's cyber analysts traced wire transfers through 5 states and 3 holding companies. Some of the funds were tied to Department of Defense subcontracts, contracts I'd once signed off on before I retired. They weren't just stealing from me. They were stealing from the government, from taxpayers, from soldiers. That made it treasonous. A week later, we stood before the court. No TV cameras, no drama, just a clean room and a stone-faced judge. I sat in uniform. Ribbons sharp, posture sharp. Riley prepped me before we went in. Don't argue. Don't react. Let the evidence speak louder than your anger. I nodded. I knew the drill. The prosecutor started slow. Deed transfer irregularities, notary inconsistencies, signature comparisons. Every digital file Isaac compiled and every timestamp Kayla decoded was now in the hands of the court. Then came the bombshell, a recorded audio clip. If the officer finds out, no warning, sever the tie. The court heard my father's voice, as gravel-thick and southern as I remembered. It echoed through the room. For a moment, even Ryan's attorney looked shaken. Delilah kept her eyes on her lap. Her hands trembled. My father, Richard Maddox, sat expressionless, like he wasn't even there. Then came the final question. Lieutenant Colonel Maddox, the prosecutor said, in your professional opinion, was this a deliberate effort to commit fraud using your military identity? I didn't hesitate. Yes, they didn't just try to erase me, they used me. They exploited my service, my name, my clearance, and they built an entire network of stolen legitimacy around it. The judge ruled. Delilah, 6 years. Ryan, 8. Richard Maddox, 10 years, no parole. No one shouted. No one begged. Just the quiet sound of their futures folding. And me? I walked out with my name intact. Outside the courthouse, reporters circled. But I wasn't interested in the headlines. I was looking for the old guys. And sure enough, they were there. Veterans in faded jackets, a few with oxygen tanks, a few nodding silently as I passed. One reached out. His grip was strong despite the tremor. Colonel Maddox, he said, you reminded them. We still stand. I nodded. We don't stay erased. You'd think the war would be over once the judge dropped the gavel. But with people like my father, it never ends in the courtroom. It just mutates. Riley called me 2 nights after the verdict. We've got another problem, she said. What now? I ran a second pass through the utility records for Renfield Lane. There's more. Spikes in electricity, off-cycle billing. It didn't stop after the injunction. The house is frozen. No one should be using it. They are quietly. Something clicked in the back of my mind. A memory I hadn't touched in years. Grandpa's old storm cellar. A private access point through the side yard. Not on the blueprints. Just family knowledge. I sat up straight. I need eyes on that basement. No judge will authorize another search without new evidence. Then I'll get it myself. I geared up that night. Not like before, this wasn't recon. This was confirmation. Black hoodie, tack gloves, camera with a long lens, audio recorder tucked in my sleeve. I parked the same 2 blocks away, walked the rest staying close to fences and hedges. At 2:12 a.m., a single van rolled in. No lights. It stopped at the back gate. Ryan wasn't driving this time. But 2 men got out, one tall, one stocky, both in plain black, gloves on, no conversation. They opened the back of the van and began unloading crates. I watched from behind a trash enclosure, heart still, camera rolling. The crates weren't marked, but the way they were handled? Careful, intentional. The tall one reached into his coat, pulled out a badge, scanned a portable lock pad at the basement door. Not a key, a biometric device. That was federal-level tech. They weren't just squatting, they were operating, and someone high up was helping them. I slipped away before they came back out. Back in my apartment, I uploaded the footage to a secure cloud. Then I called Isaac. "Check the contractor list for Renfield County," I told him. "Look for anything tied to secure delivery, data warehousing, or cryologistics." He didn't even ask why. He just said, "Give me 90 minutes." He came back in 45. "There's a ghost contract," he said, filed under a dummy niche R&D proposal. On paper, it's experimental cold chain vaccine storage, but the listed address is 2301 Renfield Lane, I said. "Exactly." "And who approved it?" Isaac exhaled. "You're not going to like this." "Try me." Contract sponsor, Richard Maddox. Position listed as Land Use Supervisor for Raven Pine Enterprises. That's a new name. "Yeah, shell number 5, but the paper trail is clean. Real clean. And the funding?" "Where from?" "Department of Defense. Federal Health Budget Reallocation." My blood ran cold. He wasn't just helping Ryan. He was routing taxpayer money through fake science contracts using my grandfather's house as the storage front. They were selling access to military-grade cold storage. And if anyone ever asked questions, they'd wave a badge and mumble something about niche compliance. Riley wasn't surprised. She'd already started drafting a federal fraud complaint. "This is bigger than one property," she said. "This is procurement abuse. This is racketeering." And they're still operating. They're not done until we drag every dollar into the light. I pulled up the old blueprints from Grandpa's files, located the side cellar, marked the entry point. That night, I went back, this time with a body cam. The neighborhood was still, too still. I kept low, slipped through the hedges, and found the hatch half covered by a loose grill cover. Just like Grandpa left it, I eased it open. The cellar smelled the same, dry concrete and memory. But there was something new. Buzzing, cooling fans, hidden units beneath the floor. I lowered myself down. No lights, just the glow of machinery. And in the corner, a stack of metal crates, identical to the ones from the van. I lifted the camera, hit record, and then I heard it. Footsteps. I froze. 2 voices, male, 1 gruff, 1 clipped. "Inventory confirmed?" "Yeah, 6:45 pickup tomorrow. Outbound manifests already filed." "You get the files from Langley?" "ETA's in the dock queue." I didn't breathe. I didn't move. Then one of them laughed. "This house has made us a fortune. Should have cut the colonel in. Could have used her silence. She doesn't strike me as the silent type." They left after a few more exchanges. I stayed buried in the shadows until the sun scraped the sky. Then I got out. I sent everything to Riley and Isaac, and I waited. Within 72 hours, federal agents raided the house. No headlines, no sirens, just black Suburbans and quiet voices in suits. By noon, the basement was sealed. The crates were tagged. And the men? They disappeared before charges could be filed. Ryan was gone. So was my father. Delilah had lawyered up. But the contracts, they were real. And they were signed. They weren't just laundering money. They were selling back-end access to storage technology flagged under military patent, all funneled through my house. The one they said wasn't mine. By the time the basement was sealed and the contracts exposed, you'd think we'd finally cut the head off the snake. But this wasn't a local operation. This was a network. And it ran deeper than anyone wanted to admit. The raid had flushed out the crates and shut down the hidden servers. But the people behind it? They vanished into their own shadows. Ryan disappeared. My father's name was scrubbed from every official directory in less than 24 hours. Delilah hadn't left the house since the raid. She was still pretending this was just a property dispute. But I knew what they were trying to do next. Make me the liability. The message came through my secure inbox. Encrypted, no metadata trail. "You want to go public? You want headlines? Read this first." Attached, my military psychological evaluation. Not the redacted one. The full file. Pages of classified reports, mission stress profiles, trauma exposure scales, things even I hadn't read in years. It detailed Bahrain, the losses, the things I saw behind digital walls most people can't even imagine. There was one phrase, bolded. Subject demonstrates hypervigilance, obsessive behavior under perceived threat. I stared at that line for a long time. They weren't just trying to discredit me. They were trying to break me. I sent the file to Riley and Isaac. Riley's response was immediate. This is an intimidation tactic, illegal access. We file another claim. But Isaac was already moving on something else. I cross-referenced the timecode on the file access, he said. It was pulled from a secure DTRA backup 2 days ago. The clearance used belonged to someone in Naval R&D. And who triggered it? He paused. The access trail leads to Raven Pine's legal team. They're planning a counterattack. Worse, Isaac said. They're prepping a narrative, trying to paint you as unstable, to bury everything you found. They'd stolen my house, my inheritance, my name. Now, they wanted to steal my credibility. I sat in silence for a long time that night, not because I was afraid, but because I knew this part of the battle. I'd seen it before. People with power rewriting stories until the victim looks like the threat. I stared at the screen until the cursor stopped blinking. Then I started typing. A statement. Simple, direct. It began with, "My name is Cassandra Maddox, and this is what they tried to erase." Riley reviewed it and nodded. "Drop it when you're ready, but be prepared. They'll come hard." I smiled without humor. I was trained for hard. 2 days later, we filed our next move. A federal motion to expose Raven Pine Enterprises and Coreway Logistics as fraud conduits, wire fraud, identity theft, procurement manipulation. And we attached everything. The audio recordings, the basement footage, the contract trail, and yes, my psych file. Because I wasn't going to let them use my story against me. I'd tell it myself. Riley included a line in the filing I'll never forget. Lieutenant Collier Maddox is not unstable. She is trained, and that training is exactly what helped her uncover a multi-state federal scam. It hit like a sledgehammer, because that's the thing they always forget. They train people like me to be relentless, and then they act surprised when we fight back. Riley got a tip the next morning. A reporter from the Citadel Ledger, someone deep in military corruption cases, wanted to talk. Said she'd been tracking Raven Pine's shell activity for months. I met her in a quiet park. She was in her 60s, wire-rimmed glasses, soft voice. But her eyes? Steel. "You've got them on the run," she said, "but they've been here before. How do I stop them?" By dragging the whole damn web into the daylight. Not just the house, the contracts, the names. She handed me a file. Inside were names, other veterans, all women, all tied to ghost transactions under different Raven Pine aliases. Same story. Inheritance disputes. Suddenly removed from deeds, suddenly unfit to manage property. Then shell companies moved in. It was a pattern. They weren't just laundering money. They were targeting people who couldn't fight back or who they thought wouldn't. I stared at the list. One name at the bottom had a red underline. Lant Helena Knox, deceased, auto accident, case unresolved. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about a house. It was a system, and Helena might have been the cost of silence. That night, I stood outside Renfield Lane again. No longer a trespasser, just a soldier waiting for the next wave. The windows were dark now. No lights, no vans, no buzz of hidden refrigeration. Just stillness. But underneath it all, I could feel it. The war wasn't over. Not yet. I had truth on my side. Now I had voices, and a story too big for them to bury. 1 month after the courtroom hearing, after the federal raid, after my psych file was weaponized and defused, the world went quiet. But that silence? It wasn't peace. It was the sound of the other side pulling back, regrouping. That's how people like my father survive. They don't scream. They strategize. Riley kept the pressure on. She filed for full restitution, the return of 2301 Renfield Lane, damages for forgery, identity theft, and unauthorized use of military credentials. We didn't expect them to settle, but they did. In a single motion, Raven Pine Enterprises relinquished all property claims. Coreway Logistics dissolved within the week. Ryan fled the country. Last ping from a private airfield in Belize. Delilah, under mounting pressure, signed a confession, part of a plea deal to avoid prison. And my father, he disappeared. But his name remained on every signature, every contract, every access badge. There was nowhere left for him to hide. The house was mine again. On paper, legally, irrevocably. But that wasn't the victory. The victory came 2 days later, when I unlocked the front door and stepped into the house that tried to forget me. Everything had changed. The furniture was different. The walls had been painted over. The hydrangeas were gone. But some things were still there. The dent in the banister where I cracked my knee at age 7. The faded stickers on the closet door in the room that used to be mine. The soft hum of silence that only ever existed in homes where grandparents once read aloud at night. This wasn't a fortress. It wasn't a battlefield. It was home. And I was done being erased from it. That night, I opened Grandpa's old cedar chest. Inside were his journals, dog-eared and stained with time. Tucked into the last one was a flash drive. On it, a video. Grainy. Time-stamped. Dated 2 days before he passed. "Cass," he said, voice low but steady. "This house is yours. I've seen your strength. I've seen your sacrifice. You earned this not because of blood, but because of character." I sat there and let his words carry me through every betrayal I'd faced. Sometimes the last thing they expect is that you'll outlive the lie. The story went public within weeks. A Citadel Ledger expose. Then a follow-up on Federal Insight Weekly. The headline was simple. Veteran uncovers multi-state property laundering scheme. Family at the center. The story broke wide. Other women came forward. Other veterans. A retired Air Force major in Arizona. A former Navy medic in Colorado. Each one had a home stolen, a signature forged, a will rewritten. And every time it was the same playbook. By going public, I hadn't just reclaimed my house, I'd opened the door for others. 6 weeks later, I visited the Defense Service Library in D.C. Inside, there's a wall. Black granite, names carved deep. Not the fallen, those are honored elsewhere. This wall is different. It lists career cyber officers, those who served in silence, those who protected without parades. And there it was, my name. To Colonel Cassandra Maddox, Cyber Command, 1998-2023. No one could ever take that from me. Not my father, not my sister, not a shell company hiding behind a logistics scam. This name was mine, and it was carved into stone. Outside the library, I stood beneath the flag. No cameras, no press, just the cool air of a city built on stories. Some true, some edited, but this one ended with truth. Not revenge, not glory, just truth. Because in the end, I didn't walk away with their money, or their apologies, or their ruined futures. I walked away with something better. I walked away whole.